We have been trained to see things symbolically. So these are symbols of our English language. So it's very hard for us to see the pattern of this because we were trained to see it symbolically. But if you take this and draw this out to a pre-literate child, they would see the pattern right away. And what the pattern is this line is straight lines and this line is round curvy lines. The indigenous peoples that understood patterns read things not like we do with reading in symbols. They understood things by shapes and movement. And why is that important to know? Because the world works in patterns, not in symbols. Notice that there were petroglyphs and patterns in these tribes that there were certain ones that you saw everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And what were they? And Louis has showed you this. He saw this everywhere around the world among indigenous peoples. He also saw this one. Right? And he also saw this one. Or sometimes it's this one. Now what he understood then was that they were using these, instead of having a novel that you write all these symbols and words and stuff, that this meant much more than a few words could talk about. This spoke novels of what the world is about. That everything, no exception, in the universe is made up of the general model principle, which were those patterns I just showed you. But Bill Mollison put it into a different model, which he called the general model. And what it is this is like the ground level. We're looking at it as if we're at the ground level. And at one point at the ground level, you could call it the seed, you have the tree, basically. And you have the general model that goes up, and it goes underneath the ground, and it curves like this, goes over, mushrooms out like this, and mushrooms like this. So when you start to see everything in this pattern way, you start to see how it all is like this pattern way. I mean, if you take a tree, for instance, you have the roots imitating the branches, same pattern, same vein-like structures going out to feed the branches up here, right? The branches go out like this, make leaves, do all their stuff, drop the leaves, it comes down, drops the leaves. If you notice, there's another general model happening right here. You see it? This way? So the leaf drops, the tree drops the leaf right here. The roots pick up the nutrients from the dropped leaf and swirls it back up here. So what ends up happening is you get this movement going like this, which looks like a donut because this is 3-dimension. So you can imagine this is happening. The nutrients are dropping into the ground, being picked up by the roots, brought back up, round and round and round. Once you understand that these are the main patterns that we're going to be looking at. They help us, and I believe they've always helped us, people, from the first time we saw how to move through the world. And when we don't see the pattern anymore, we think we can just do whatever in the world. And we have problems and we get sick and we have all this disaster happening because we're going against the pattern that is natural to the universe. So the point of understanding the pattern is to understand how maybe you move in the world, how you move your body, how you make businesses, how you make buildings, how you, everything, gardens. Okay, what I'm going to do is a circle, is I'm going to make this pattern. Okay, I made the spiral. But what happens when you stretch the spiral out? You get the other pattern we were talking about. And in this case, it gets bigger to smaller. This is the pattern of motion. So in order to travel, this pattern had to learn how to do this and stretch out, because then it can go near, 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 near. Our bodies are this pattern. Look at my body. The way I can get from here to there is because I bend like this. My foot goes that way, my knee goes this way, my hip goes this way. See, it's making this pattern already. And this is why I can get from here to there. This is that pattern moving. Not only on that level, that because my body was formed to be a slinky that moves this way, it also does this motion, the circle motion. So I'm able to even move because I'm in this pattern. And we don't walk like this. We don't walk like this. We are pattern beings. And not only are we going like this and we're built like this, we actually sway a little bit when we walk. So we're doing this, which is that pattern again, going back and forth. So all I'm going to do is put the spiral pattern inside this one, and what do we got? Watch. And it can be tighter, it can be looser, but where do we see this? Where do we see this pattern? That sunflowers. That's one of the most common things. Where's Karl? I stole one of Karl's sunflowers because it shows if it's a little one, but look in the middle of it and see this pattern. So you start to realize that. Question whether those kernels, you know, if you're ever eating sunflower seeds, how they're shaped that certain way that they're shaped. Is the shape of the seeds making this, or is it the energy of the pattern that made the seeds the shape they are? So each of these seeds are shaped, you know, those little diamond shapes that they are. Maybe not because that's just the way they are, but because of the pattern that they are part of. And that brings up the question of what patterns are running around us that makes us the way we are. Pulled this out and made it, I mean, this looks more like a sunflower, but if you pull this out, you will see this pattern in pineapples, artichokes, pine cones. I believe that the reason human beings have achieved what they have achieved is not because they're above nature. It's because once in a while they hit on a good pattern that nature does. Yesterday me and Jonathan were trying to put up these things, and he was trying to screw into this hard cement here, and I realized he has this electric drill and this screw, and the screw looks like this. Yeah, well, that's a bad drawing, but you know what I mean. It's a screw head. It's like we have built monstrosities off of the pattern of that's the way engines work in cars. That's the way. I mean, what would we do without our cars? You know, what would we do without a drill bit? You know, what would we do with all the things we have that are really basic to what we do? That are all based on these patterns. It may be helpful when we hit against some question we have, to maybe go back and remember patterns and see if there's some pattern we're missing, and if there is a pattern we could use that might help the situation. I was talking to a woman who was helping people with their health by testing their voice sounds, that we've gotten very monotone, and the more monotone we are in our voices, the more illness we open ourselves to. And she's helping people reach a different, so you practice going high and then going low, and you know, that those changes are actually good for us. So I was thinking song is good for us for that reason, because it makes us have a moment where we go like that. I think of this pattern is very special to me, because it's kind of like, I think of it as like that's the beginning, and then this is its life, and then now we're over here, but that's its beginning, and it's always there, the beginning. And just like this tree, we have a middle too. We have a beginning spot, and if we forget this too, then I think things go off. We end up being empty inside. We don't have all these stories, all these parts to us. We become empty. And so it's important to remember our center. So I think of this as the centered pattern. And why is this important? Because this is another pattern. Remember the middle of yourself, like you were saying, when you start spinning, and if you're really centered, you spin really well. You are centered and strong and stable. If you don't have maybe you forgot this part of yourself, and this part is just this ring out here, and you're trying to live, but it's kind of aimlessly moving around because it doesn't have a grounding. It doesn't have the middle part of yourself intact. So it's important to remember that middle place. Have you ever gone to a pond that's very still, and you take in a pebble or two, you throw a pebble in the pond, thump! What pattern does it make? And it makes this, and it goes on and on and on across the lake. Now the cool thing is you throw in two stones, do they reach each other and stop and go, excuse me? Don't they just go right on through each other? That's there, it's proof. And we can keep adding more and more and more of these. And why is this important? It's important because the more we have here, the stronger the basket of life becomes. We make our world very, very strong. Our basket becomes very, very strong. And we've gotten scared of the world, and we've taken out one strand out of the next. We go, oh, bugs are scary, let's kill them all. Take out those strands. Oh, we can't have wild dogs running around, take out those strands. Oh, we can't have those people around, take out that strand. Oh, we can't have those plants, those are bad. Take those plants out. And one by one, we've taken out strands of our basket until we have a very, very weak basket. And that's why we're on the verge of having some major environmental problems going on, because we forgot the pattern that the more, the stronger, the better.